And more continuing coverage from Radio Row in preparation for Super Bowl 59 with Front Office Sports and Baker Machado. And we're joined by Andrew Whitworth, former NFL offensive tackle. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, appreciate you having me, man.
All right, so obviously everybody sees Pepsi right there in the front on your sweater. You are judging a panel for Pepsi's Super Bowl Boil. Tell us a little bit about this, because I think it helps you being a Louisiana native in this.
Listen, man, I brought my paddle and everything.
Yes.
Nobody really knows what this is. This is what you use to stir the pot.
Oh,
right?
I didn't
So with
know
crawfish, your potatoes, your corn, and all that. It's a paddle. So this is my paddle. So tomorrow at Waldenburg Park, we're going to have a contest between Mr. Shrimp and Crawlin' Seafood to see who bowls the best in the city. Pepsi's putting on the first ever Super Bowl bowl. So I'm the judge, which basically just means I get to eat.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's great.
Does that make it hard for you, to judge this? Or do you, having been from Louisiana, what's really good when it comes to a boil?
I have a pretty good feel for what I like and don't like, and we'll see. I just realized, one person is probably going to be mad at me because I don't pick their team. So, you know what? It's a big responsibility.
It is.
Guys. Listen, you guys think the Super Bowl is a big deal. Picking the Crawfish Shrimp Bowl winner is going to be a really big deal.
All right, let's talk some football here. Obviously, one of the big conversations right now is the NFL going to add an 18th game? Roger Goodell was asked this. Clearly, the union has to work with him on this, but it doesn't seem like the players are really on board with this. A lot of the players I've asked, though, think an 18th game is inevitable. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think a lot of the players weren't on board with the 17th game. Now they're not on board with an 18th game, but inevitably, money makes the world go round, so there will end up being an 18th game. Because I think the truth is, if you look at it, and I always say this is what's totally different now about this league than even when I started, is that when I got in 06, we adjusted training camp. We took out two-a-days. We adjusted the system, really, of what you did. So my first few years, you had two-a-days, then you think the next CBA, you take that away. You change some of those incentives in the offseason, how we actually prepare in the real OTA time and what you're limited to, really restrict some of that. And then now what training camp is, with the required days off, really no two-a-days whatsoever and all that, what they've picked up on, though, is now we have all these scrimmages that go against teams. Well, when I was playing earlier in my career and you played in a preseason game,
yep,
you'd play 10 plays in the first game. You'd play 15 or 20 snaps the next one. You might play 25.
Some players have said it's actually a week off was what they thought it was,
Now, this is much more challenging to go, because you got to think, when you have these scrimmages against other teams, you're taking 50, 60 snaps in a practice.
Yep.
So you're actually working more now in the preseason in the sense of not with two-a-days, but the actual game action. So I think it's a very simple solution. You cut a week off of the preseason, you have those practices, and then you go right into an 18-game schedule, give them another bye week and some time to get off. I think it's an easy fix because it's that perfect break to add a bye week and add one more game, which increases their money by a ton.
Yeah, and I think that's also going to be key, the financial compensation. Clearly, if the players are going to get adequately financially compensated, I think, and the 2 bye weeks, I think, will definitely help.
What they share right now, all it's going to do is add to the pie, which adds to their share.
That's such a good point. Obviously, you play for the Rams. It seems like you have a lot of affinity for that team. The news about Cooper Kupp, obviously, impacting a lot of Rams fans because he's such a big face of that franchise. Are you sad about that? And do you have any team that you hope maybe he lands with?
Oh, definitely sad about it. Just more so, I know it hurts him. And, obviously it's a raw emotion when something like that happens that, you get told that a team's going to move on in a different direction. You think of the impact Cooper Kupp's had really in that entire building, not just the wide receiver room, and on the city of LA. I mean, the things he's done in the community, the impact he had as a player, winning a Super Bowl, all of that. I can remember, getting there with him being his rookie year, the human being and how much he's grown. I know Puka and those guys will forever be changed and better because of being in a room with him. But, inevitably, this is how football works. Yep. Teams are they're giving you a job, and they're also trying to replace you at the same time. And so he got that extension after the Super Bowl. And then right after that, in comes Puka Nacua, and he has this great rookie season. And so you're like, man, now he backs it up again. And you go, hey, these are pretty similar players as far as their role in the offense. So maybe it's time that we go on with this guy who doesn't have the big contract and we move on. And Coop, you've been here, you've done your thing. You can go help somebody else. I think Cooper's going to be a massive addition to some other team.
Yeah.
His cerebral, just honestly, his vision for the game, his understanding of the game. He's going to be like having a coach on the field for whatever team needs him. So if there's a team out there that's building a roster, you got a rookie quarterback, and you need some guy who's going to handle all the other stuff for him, or maybe even educate him on all the other stuff, it's Cooper Kupp. If you got a young group of receivers who you want to establish a standard for, this is what our room's going to live like, this is what we're going to do, we're going to be, there's no better person on the planet than Cooper Kupp to bring in. So there'll be some teams that have a clear vision for what his role is going to be in their roster, and I'm sure they'll make that move.
Yeah, and teams like Denver, New England, a bunch of others definitely going to be really hot on the market for him. The other player that will be weird if they're not in a Rams uniform would be Matthew Stafford. Obviously, a lot of questions about his contract and all of that. Where do you sort of see Matthew Stafford? You got to think he's got to stay with the Rams. You think it's going to be weird with him anywhere else?
Yeah, it sure seems like it. I mean, he's got years left in him. The way he was playing at the end of this past season, clearly he could still play at a really high level. You look at it, it wouldn't be that hard to figure his contract situation out. I mean, for the number he was playing at, really, and figuring out a way to extend that a year or two, that's a 2-year deal or 1-year deal. To kind of give him those couple more years, and then also for you to kind of start that process. And I think that's part of what the Kupp trade is about too, of how do we build a roster that's supportive when Cooper Kupp's gone, that Matthew Stafford's gone, that we're not having a reset, that we can try to say, all right, who's the quarterback that can be there when Matthew Stafford decides he's done playing,
right,
and carry this legacy on. Because I think the fantastic fact of the Sean McVay roster is, since he's been there, they have never had a stable building process.
That's true.
And he's had this much success. All the picks were traded for Jared Goff when he got there. Then all of a sudden he trades Jared Goff. He trades for a lot of players. And then they're 22's a bomb, and then they have to reset. So he's had no stable environment since he's been there. And now with this draft class they just had, I think the reason part of this is happening is we can actually build through the draft in a natural process right now, build cap space and everything else to build him the kind of roster we're watching play this weekend.
Yeah, no, it's such a great point. I think a lot of people also forget the last 5 years, I think the Rams have had the top 5 in dead cap money, which has really also hamstrung what they've been able to do in terms of additions. So you're right. I think what Sean McVay has been able to do is great. I'll get you out of here on this. Obviously, Saquon Barkley having a terrific year. The difference, though, between him and the Giants and him and the Eagles has to be the offensive line, which has been hugely pivotal for him. Sort of the unsung heroes. I think it just goes to show how important an offensive line is to when a running back has a great year like Saquon has.
Well, listen, I continue to say this. I've said it all week, especially with this Luka Doncic trade happening this week.
By the way, is the number one thing everybody's talking about.
It is. And the reality is, for these great things to happen, there has to be somebody that you think has just made a moronic decision on the other side. And to me, that's with the Giants. How you let an amazing human being, an amazing football player ever leave your building that you brought in your building, I don't ever get that when teams do it. And to me, to ever match up this good of an offensive line with this good of a running back shouldn't actually happen unless somebody makes a really dumb decision.
Right.
And the Giants made that one. And so they gave them this opportunity, and they're together. And that's what's going to be for as long as Saquon is a part of the Philadelphia Eagles in this line, they are going to be a problem because you really don't see this a lot. To me, I equate it to NBA teams when you see 3 superstars end up on a team, or maybe 2 megastars end up on the same team. That's what has to happen for this kind of thing to come together. And I bring up Luka only because 2 times in a row, 77s have come to L.A.
Yep.
Jeff Carter, L.A. Kings, came from Philly, won 2 Stanley Cups. 7s right here, came to L.A. We won at Lombardi. Now it's Luka's turn. Let's make it a trifecta, Luka.
I think you're on to something here, and seeing him with LeBron is going to be. They obviously need a center, but
they went and got him. They went and got him.
Yeah, that's true. Yes, that's true. They did. That's true. But either way, we could talk about this forever. Andrew, such a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Appreciate it, man.
And we got more interviews coming your way. Stay with us here at Front Office Sports.